Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Alex Avila with Love University, and we're back. I'm an author, psychologist, and speaker. Every week, we talk about how to love ourselves, others, and a higher nature, how to improve our finances, career, health, relationships, and spirituality. And we have a very intriguing returning guest here, Darlene Lancer, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist, expert author on relationships, narcissism, and codependency. She's counseled individuals and couples for over 30 years and coaches internationally. She's also an emotional intuitive, which I found interesting, and has been a senior mediator in Los Angeles Superior Court. She is a sought-after speaker in media and at professional organizations and conferences, and has written 10 books, including Codependency No More, which I have here. And the one we're going to talk about today is Dating, Loving, and Leaving a Narcissist. Welcome to the show, Darlene.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, it's Codependency for Dummies. It's not Codependency No More.
Oh, okay. Codependency for dummies. Yeah, okay. That's the classic series.
Right.
Now, you say you're an emotional intuitive. What is that exactly?
Well, I just get these insights. I'm very good at figuring out like the cause of something or what people are feeling and why they're feeling it. So I've had psychic experiences. So
okay, interesting.
it's just a talent, a sensitivity I have to.
Right. Now, I wrote a book,
people.
if you recall, Darlene, I wrote the book Love Types on Myers-Briggs and personality relationships. And I think you seem like an INFP, if I'm not incorrect. Do you know what that is? Myers-Briggs?
INFJ.
INFJ. Okay, so you're more structured personality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you have introvert, intuitive, introverted feeling. And then, actually, I call that the mystic rider. And those actually are very spiritual, intuitive kind of folks.
Right.
That help people.
I used to be more extroverted, and then I got more into my spiritual side. And
Jung talked about that part of individuation where we kind of start to combine different elements. Now,
actually, the P has been my weakest.
Oh, P. Oh,
my weakest.
Were you the P before? The P means spontaneous.
No, it's been my weakest function.
Oh, weakest function. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Now, you have a very interesting backstory. When I was reading the book, you talk about the narcissist personality, and you deal, I guess, with some of the dark sides of personality, you could say, or humanity. I'm wondering why. And you said that you actually were married to an alcoholic, abusive husband, and you left him, and then you left the law. You were a lawyer too, so you left everything. Tell us about that story.
At the same time.
Yes, that sounds interesting. So what happened there?
Well, I was in 12-step programs. I was in Al-Anon, which I've written about in the Dummies book, and I continued to grow and set boundaries and build my self-esteem and be more autonomous. I got married very young, and my husband was a little older than me. He was already a lawyer, and I was just I met him when I was in law school. So as I came into my own and developed my interests, which were very different from him, I became more independent. He didn't like that too much. But I started setting boundaries, and the relationship improved. But I really wanted more from it, and I started therapy. And I got to the point where I realized, I said, interesting, because I was sitting at an Al-Anon meeting one day, and I realized I would leave not because I was so unhappy, but because I was happy in spite of the marriage.
Interesting.
And I tell that to people, and I write about it in my book. It's like, it's hard to leave a relationship when you've been so focused on the other person, they become your world, and your world revolves around them. So if you want to leave, you have nothing to go to. So I had developed a life independent of my marriage. And so it was like the marriage became less and less important in my life.
Interesting.
And he wasn't willing to make changes, or unable to make changes.
I see.
And so it just kind of dissolved, and the power started shifting. And that's what I write a lot about in my book. And I understand that professionally and personally and clinically, and I've seen it with my patients, when you start taking back your power, and that's what my book is about, there's something called narcissistic collapse. And at one point, my husband said he had a lot of self-loathing. He hadn't realized how dependent he was on.
Well, before we get into that, let me clarify for our audience. So the narcissistic personality, and then you have the codependent personality. So narcissistic, and a lot of people use this term. I hear this a lot. They're a narcissist. She's a narcissist, or mainly he's a narcissist. And I know that there's a clinical aspect as well. And in terms of what it means, narcissistic personality disorder, DSM-5-TR, talks about someone who has grandiosity, this feeling of greatness, a need for admiration, lack of empathy. And was that your husband? Is he a narcissist? Were you codependent, as far as you could tell?
Well, I was definitely codependent. I think he was codependent too. I was going to say, I think that narcissists are codependent too.
Yes.
I don't think he had a narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah.
So looking back, but he did have a personality disorder and
I see.
probably borderline.
Okay. Those kind of things.
So,
Now let me get
and
into
the drinking.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a whole different topic. But the key of narcissism, a lot of people are fascinated by this. People ask a lot of questions. One is, are we becoming a narcissistic society where people are self-focused, maybe not empathetic, and so forth? And the idea that typically, I think it's a 3-to-2 ratio male to female are narcissistic personality disorders. I think it said 1.6 to 2% of the population. But there's some more females in your book you mentioned are becoming that way. Now, is that true? Are females becoming more narcissistic? And also society in general?
I mean, I don't know because I don't do these big sociological studies. But probably because women are becoming more independent. They're marrying later. And there's so much emphasis on appearance. And one of the things I say in my book, Conquering Shame and Codependency and Codependency for Dummies, is that the more we focus outside ourselves, the more we become self-alienated from our true self. And it's like an alcoholic, he's feeling depressed or unhappy, takes a drink to feel better. And the more he drinks, the further he gets away from himself and the problem. His situation, his life, his feelings get worse and worse. And it's the same with the codependent. The more you're looking, to your partner, relationship, or it could be food or gambling or whatever the addiction is, the further you get away from the solution, which is going inside and self-love and connecting with yourself.
Yeah.
And our culture emphasizes that. So everything's getting faster and faster.
Yeah. So
much distraction. So that's, I think, part of it.
Right. But if you were just, in a nutshell, the term narcissist, we know there's a myth, the Greek myth of the person that falls in love with their own image or something. So what is it, narcissism?
Narcissistic personality disorder you're talking about.
Just narcissism in general. Let's say, aside from the personality disorder, maybe someone doesn't have the full-blown disorder, but they have certain parts of this thing.
Okay. Well, there's healthy narcissism. Actually, I think that codependents don't have enough narcissism.
Okay.
I actually had a dream that I needed to be more narcissistic.
Yeah, I read that
about like putting yourself first.
Okay.
In a lot of situations. I mean, at least having a choice.
Self-confidence.
Codependence. Confidence, leadership, goals, self-efficacy. Codependents don't usually have that ability, agency. They talk about the grandiose narcissist as being agentic. That's a political term. So having agency, that you can make things happen, and you're not a victim of them. And you don't need, usually codependents need a partner, structure, a teacher, a guide, somebody to motivate them to do something. Otherwise, they get deflated. So having that agency, and there's a lot of Oprah is an example. Somebody who has healthy narcissism. And a lot of leaders and CEOs are like that.
Right. I was thinking about that. And when I was in graduate school, we all took the MMPI, personality, abnormal personality. And they said that basically a lot of people have slight elevations on some of the scales who are very successful. For example, mania is a high energy. Some of the geniuses have that. Psychopathic deviant or sociopath, some of our police officers need to have that to understand the criminal mind. They need to not have the guilt, I guess, when they do things, to apprehend them. And I'm thinking the idea of narcissisticness or narcissistic trait, I guess to be a great salesperson, or even a politician, persuader, they need to have some of that element, you're saying, right? This kind of...
Right. And actually, people will point the finger at someone who's arrogant or selfish and think they're a narcissist. That is, arrogance is one of the traits, but selfishness isn't. So you can have healthy pride. A lot of Codependents are afraid that it's conceited. They feel guilty,
Yes.
taking pride in themselves. And some
Yes.
clients have told me that in their religion, they were told that would be, conceited or hubris or something like that. So they couldn't even have confidence in themselves.
So would you say that narcissism is unmerited confidence versus healthy self-esteem is merited confidence? Would you talk about it that way?
Actually, most narcissists are riddled with shame. They may not be conscious, but if you look at all the different traits of the personality disorder,
yes,
they're all a defense to shame. They have to pump themselves up. They have to be around high-status people. They have to look down on other people to build themselves up like a bully.
Right. But are they really that good, or is it an inflated, out of realistic perception?
Well, it's usually somewhat inflated, but there are narcissists that are successful too. And they're smart and they're talented. So they may be at the top of their field. So it's not necessarily true. They may be women that are beautiful are narcissists, and some are not so, beautiful, and they think they're great. So there's, but all of the traits and putting other people down, feeling entitled, exploiting, these are all envying people. That's all a way to feel better than someone else because they don't feel good about themselves inside. That's a hidden secret, that they're like paper tigers.
I see. And I remember when I was looking at this stuff, the other aspect of personality disorder is that they may feel they're fine, but other people are not. But they make other people miserable, in a sense. So do you see that as well? Like some of them are, I guess, blissfully ignorant of their own flaws in a certain way, but then the other people suffer because of them.
Well, I have a diagram in my book, actually it's in the book on shame too. And that, see if I could explain it. We have, shame is an interesting emotion because it manifests either sometimes in inflation or deflation. So you can feel better than other people as a defense to feeling deficient in yourself, or you can feel inadequate and then you idealize someone. So you have this internal critic that puts yourself down. And if you're inflated and you think you're better, then the critic looks at other people, puts other people down, and it's projected outwards. And even people that are not narcissists, they may project that inner critic on someone else and think that other people are judging them, whether, it's really themselves that are judging.
Interesting.
Or they think they're competing, they're better than, you don't have to be a narcissist. They think you're better than someone else or worse than someone else.
I see.
And the fact that I studied both shame and codependency and narcissism, shame is the link between all three things. It underlies codependency and addiction and narcissism.
Right. But shame is an interesting term because I know that in the East, shame is sometimes a tool for correction and discipline in childhood. But I'm not sure about the Western society. They say we're shameless. So where does the shame come from, in a sense that you're saying? Is it like as a child, your parents said you're bad kind of thing?
That's one way.
Right.
Yeah. Or it could be just emotional abandonment. So a lot of people think they had a happy childhood because maybe their material needs were met, but their parents said, "Oh, you shouldn't feel that way," or you're overcorrecting them. Parentification, so they don't get to be a child,
right?
Or just ignoring them.
Overly indulgent.
A lot of
you also mentioned overly indulgent parents or mother. Like, how would that create the narcissist? Because you're too good, you're too special.
They don't realize the impact of their behavior. It's important to let children know that, like, if they're cruel to somebody, what that feels like, and maybe they'll lose friends if they steal, if they lie, people won't trust them. The impact of their behavior,
consequences and boundaries.
Right. If you just say you're a bad boy, you're a bad girl, or call them names derogatory, then that shames them. I had a client whose parents gave her a lot of tutoring to help her with her grades. And she still wasn't getting good grades. And she felt that as they were trying so hard to make her be an A student and pushing her that way, that she thought, I must be flawed. So it could be inadvertent too, or you just have too many children or financial or marital stress, and you don't have time to really listen and be present for your child. A child needs to feel not just the words, I love you, but that you value them as an individual. You want to spend time with them. You want to listen to them. That with not conditional love. It's not just because I get A's or I'm an athlete or talented. That I love you and I care about you for who you are as a separate person.
Yes.
And that's very important.
Definitely. Yeah, that's over Jurian. Unconditional positive regard or empathy. And I see a lot of psychodynamicness in some of your work. It looks like you talk about the defense mechanisms, I think, for the narcissist. So these are kind of interesting terms. You say narcissistic vulnerability. I think it covered toxic shame. Narcissistic defenses, arrogance, denial, and things like that. Projection and envy. I guess they envy other people as well.
Right.
And then you say narcissistic defenses. I think we just talked about. So tell us a little bit about those things. How does that work?
Well, some of them are just defenses to shame, which I write about in my book on shame. So envy is a defense to shame.
Huh.
So you don't feel that you have envy of somebody else and you feel maybe anger towards them or want what they have. You're not feeling what you're missing. So you don't feel that way. Or aggression. So you are pushing them like a bully, basically. You put them down and you feel, or arrogance, I feel better than you. So you're lower, or looking down at certain groups of people, minorities, things like that. Projection is, it's not me, it's you. So a lot of times a narcissist, they're unconscious. The denial is a defense of their own flaws. And
it was never their fault, basically. They can do...
Yeah, they'll see it in somebody else. Actually, here's a difference between codependents and narcissists in boundaries. They both have dysfunctional boundaries. There's a lot of similarities, but they're mirror images. So a codependent doesn't see themselves, basically. They're focused on someone else. A narcissist doesn't see other people. Everyone is a extension of themselves.
You're telling me they're a good match in a love relationship? I mean, a complementary...
Well, in the beginning. Then gradually, here's another difference. Okay, the narcissist will seek power to feel safe. A codependent seeks connection. They want love. They want you to love them. They want to please you to feel safe. You won't hurt me if we're close. Okay. Wow. So a narcissist puts power first, and they will sacrifice the relationship to get it. A codependent will sacrifice themselves to keep it, to keep the relationship.
I see.
So they both put the narcissist first. They agree until there's more and more pain. The codependent is feeling more and more pain, and the narcissist is more disillusioned with their partner because they're never good enough, and their own discomfort starts to upset them. They project it on their partner, and then it gets worse and worse.
Interesting. Now, the other thing, Darlene, that I found kind of very interesting is you have classifications, different types of narcissists. Now, grandiose, the guy, I'm too great, the malignant pushes people down, the bully, which I understand that, but the two that are kind of atypical, apparently, is a vulnerable one. You said like a shy, introvert, meek person, and they're a narcissist, possibly. And then you talk about the communal, which is someone that wants to bring, I guess, carry to other people, supposedly, but in a selfish way. So how are those two narcissists? Aren't they like pretty innocent people? Apparently.
Well, the communal might look innocent, but rather than idealizing, maybe it's power in a way, but rather than idealizing power, they want to be the most supportive, the most generous, the most helpful. But it's all for their ego. They make you feel
guilty if you don't appreciate them? Is that how it works?
Yeah, right, in their image. So there might be narcissists in the in religious organizations or philanthropists, and you think that they're great, and they just feel so inflated because they're the head of this organization or the PTA or so generous, but it's all selfish. They don't really have empathy. Now, the vulnerable narcissist looks more like a borderline. And of the clients I have that are involved with vulnerable narcissists, their life is really hell because at least the extroverted narcissist can puff himself up. He can boost himself up, even if it's not true. He just makes he buoys himself up to feel better.
Right.
It's kind of false pride. But the vulnerable narcissist is very moody and complaining,
passive-aggressive,
whining, and maybe suicidal and manipulative. Instead of telling you directly what to do, he'll make you feel sorry for him. And then if you're empathetic, you want to take care of him and help him, but he'll never turn around and help you.
So it's kind of a very high degree of self-centeredness is what I'm seeing from all these narcissistic types. Not much empathy, like I said, not putting yourself in other people's shoes. And the thing is that when it gets to dating and relationships, I know we could probably have a whole session on this alone, is all the problems that occur. And a lot of people suffer a lot. You said it's very exciting in the beginning. They're charismatic. They love bomb you. They give you everything that you think you want. But then they withdraw and they get mad when you don't give them what they think they should be getting.
Right.
In terms of putting them up on a pedestal, almost like a worship thing. And the other thing you talk about is intermittent reinforcement, the operant conditioning, where they may give you some praise, but then they pull it back, and you don't know when they're going to give you more praise, so you're going to keep trying to, chase them and persist them. Like a slot machine, right? You know how you pull the machine?
Exactly.
It doesn't pay off the first time. It could be the 100th time, but you don't know, so you keep pursuing them. So how is that a problem in dating and relationships?
Well, that might not come out until later in the relationship, the intermittent reinforcement, because in the beginning, they want to make you love them. That's one of the ways they're going to feel good and get power. Then once they know you're hooked, they don't want to work so hard. They didn't even learn how to feign empathy and be a skilled conversationalist. Sometimes people involved with narcissists wonder somehow their words don't feel genuine. But people that are married to narcissists and they say, oh, it's all great in the beginning. Later, they look back and say, well, there were signs. I found out that he was flirting with my girlfriend, or, she insisted that we, go to the most expensive places or something. But some signs might be the lack of empathy, how they treat people that are service employees, like the waiters, things like that, the the valet, how they talk about their ex. Do they degrade other people?
Interesting.
Because sooner or later, they're going to, talk to you that way.
I see. So red flags at the beginning of the dating relationship, you're telling, I guess, primarily women, if that's males or this, is to be aware of it and to leave, to run.
Well, watch their behavior, not just their words. So, there's a flip side of this, and then the codependent, I write about they're hidden, not just the warning signs, but they're the red flags, but they're all in themselves, their vulnerability. Like if you're depressed, if you haven't felt love, if you're not happy being on your own, if you're lacking what we talked about, agency, then you're going to idealize this other person. And if you don't have good self-esteem, when they, on the, first date bring you flowers and tell you how wonderful you're perfect for them, you're going to believe it.
Right.
But
I'm going to get married and get married tonight, or a week later. It's just mentioned.
We're going to run off to, the Eiffel Tower for dinner or something.
Right. Exactly.
So a normal person wouldn't do that. It takes time to get to know someone.
Yes.
And you would realize that this person is unstable. But a lot of times, because of their childhood and background, codependents confuse anxiety and excitement, particularly if there's been some sexual dysfunction or abuse in the family. So all this excitement and intensity is thrilling,
Right.
but it's really, they don't realize they're anxious. They
Yeah.
don't feel comfortable setting boundaries. They don't feel comfortable saying no. They don't know when the person's going to call again, and they're,
Right.
in pins and needles. That's not healthy.
That's
That's not good.
Yeah, I call that
Oh.
negative excitement. People thrill seeking,
That's right.
but in a negative way internally.
But most codependents have never felt safe in a relationship, but they don't know it because they never felt it. So drama, melodrama, walking on eggshells, maybe that was in their home growing up.
So you're saying the codependent is their primary target or the primary person they attract? Or are there other types that the narcissist?
Well, sometimes they hook up with other narcissists.
Oh,
They do like someone who's going to reflect well on them.
pretty interesting. Two narcissists
So
going down
talented.
the street.
Yeah.
Oh,
They will look for someone who is going to make them look good.
I see.
So maybe someone who's
Yes.
accomplished or beautiful.
Right. Well, now you really have some good material in this book about basically what to do if you're with a narcissist. How to, extricate yourself from that scenario. And you talk about things like, initially, don't be available 24/7, confront their bad behavior. But also, if you're in a relationship, you talk about gray rock, which I guess is becoming very unresponsive and dull. So hopefully they leave you. I guess get tired of you. But then that can also initially increase their attention, right? Because they want to get the reinforcement from you. So that's an interesting strategy.
Yes. There's this very popular term now, and I say be careful, because if you go gray rock and you really want more attention, they might just look outside the relationship. So it's good when you're getting ready to leave.
Right.
To maybe have them want to leave, so it's
Right.
less confrontational.
Yes.
Or you've already left and you're co-parenting, you may want to be gray rock. But that's one risk, that they will just leave you rather than turn towards you.
Right.
And the other is that you'll start getting numb to your feelings. If you do this too long, you'll just numb out, and that's not healthy for your own self.
So these are kind of the scam strategies, I guess. But also you said they can come back and do hovering, where they hover over you, like on your social media, they follow you around and stuff. They send people after you. You call them monkeys or something. They're friends to try to attack you, assassinate your character. So they may retaliate at some point. So it's not that easy to get rid of these people, is what you're saying. They can
Well, especially a vulnerable narcissist, because they're very needy.
Yes.
It may take a year of you might even have to
change your name or something, or change your address or something.
Well, that's an extreme case, but you might have to change your phone number, things like that.
Credit
Not
card.
every narcissist is like that. And we're happy to move on, but that's just something to be aware of. I want to point out that in terms of confronting, you mentioned confronting abuse, which is very important.
Yes.
But how you do it is crucial and critical. So arguing, pleading, defending, there's something called JADE. You don't justify, you don't argue, you don't defend, and you don't explain. Or you don't plead, and all those things that we would naturally do are counterproductive. And I have something described in the book called strategic transactional communication. And you've confronted in a way that the narcissist will hear and take notice and be more motivated to make changes. And I go into each steps on how to do that. So it's some people just say, well, I ignore them, I walk away. Well, that's okay in the short term and in specific situations, but it's more important to use words too, so they know why.
Yes.
You're teaching them, like I said with children, the impact of their behavior.
Right. It's very fascinating. I mean, we're almost out of time, but this is something we can go on long and long. I'd love to have you back again, because ultimately, I think you talk about self-love as one of your ultimate things. You say soul alignment. And Love University, one of our things is love yourself, others, and a higher nature. Right. So love yourself in a healthy way, not necessarily egocentrically, but compassionately, and also loving others at the same time. And that would be wonderful to talk more about it if you're open to come back to talk to us.
Oh, I would love to. So that's really a journey, especially when you come from shame. And I just want to commend you. You covered a lot of material in a short time.
Well, you got a lot to offer here. I mean, I'd love to really dig deeper into the Dummies book a little more, the narcissist, the codependency and everything. Now, where can people hear more about your website or work you do? What exactly can you help people with?
Well, sure. I'm on just about all social media, and you can Google my name. My website is whatiscodependency.com.
Oh.
And I have another one that's just my name. And you can follow me on Facebook or Twitter. Welcome that. All my books are described and available on my website. Well, the Dummies and the book on shame are in stores and online stores. But my new book on narcissism, by the way, there's links to everything.
Okay. You have a new book? Is this the newest book or do you have a newer book?
That's the newest one.
Okay.
Dating, Loving, and Leaving a Narcissist. And YouTube channel, you can hear more of my interviews and seminars. And I've written about 7 or 8 who's track workbooks to help you learn new skills, because a lot of overcoming codependency is just learning skills like assertiveness and self-esteem.
Right.
And I have a self-love meditation
and
a soul alignment meditation.
I see.
So
you know, a lot of great materials and courses, and you still do private practice, like therapy?
Yes.
So people can contact you at darlenelancer.com. Is that the website?
That or whatiscodependency.com.
Okay. And the other thing, I mean, I'd like to talk to you. You mentioned a lot about shame, and I guess that's a very big issue. And I was thinking in the East, you know, they have that as upbringing idea. But I guess you're saying in the West, we have it too, very strongly.
Oh, I didn't get to respond to that.
Oh.
I talk about it in my book.
Yes.
In collectivist cultures, it's not just the East, in South America.
Yes.
Shame is used for socializing children and correcting them.
Yes.
And sometimes they bring in like the neighbors or the whole town to shame you. It's really horrific.
Yes, it is.
And shame makes you feel irredeemable. It's not productive at all.
Worthless, pretty much, yeah.
Right. And in Europe, in the States, and more Western cultures, guilt is more used to correct and socialize children. Shame is definitely there, but it's not used as much. It'll just as often say you're ashamed to the family.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah. You shame the whole community by this, but it's individually, I guess you're saying, right? The guilt.
And guilt, I was surprising to learn, and I go into my book on shame, the differences between shame and guilt. Guilt actually can build self-esteem because it's about your behavior, not about you.
Right.
So you can make amends in the 12-step programs.
Right.
Turn shame into guilt. You can go make amends. You can change your behavior. You can become an upright citizen, and then it's like you're forgiven.
Right. You were a lawyer before, so you probably worked with people that had done bad things, and maybe they're...
I did some criminal law in the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they want to change your life a lot. All right, Darlene, it's been wonderful having you on the show. Again, we'd love to have you back.
Thank you.
Self-love and also loving others. You know, compassion and empathy is very important.
It's been great talking to you.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
So until next time, this is Dr. Alex Avila of Love University. So go out this week, love yourself, love others, love a higher nature. Put away your notebooks, your iPads, your phones. Class is now dismissed. Yeah, that was a really great interview with Darlene Lancer. You know, people often ask me, I'm dating somebody, they're a narcissist, or I'm in a relationship or a marriage, and they're a narcissist. And we're going to be, careful about how do we define these things. But apparently the key is lack of caring, empathy, self-focus, just on yourself as the so-called special person. Well, you're really not necessarily. I mean, you're unique in a way, but you're not better than others. So we need to be able to have humbleness, appreciation for our talents. You have confidence as well. So I think the key is the middle path. Find the way in which you can be self-confident, have a strong ego, but also be loving toward others, be empathetic, compassionate, and also lift other people up, which will make you also happier and more joyous. So if you want to be on the show in the future, comment on today's show. Or if you have a show idea, you can reach us at 310-226-8090. You can go to loveuniversity.love. You can write us at loveuniversitylove@gmail.com. Call us at 310-226-8090. You can download the podcast on SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, and Podbean. And you can follow us and like us on Facebook and Instagram at Love Letter U Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, also Love Letter U Podcast. So till next time, this is Dr. Alex Avila. Put away your notebooks, your iPads, your phones. Class is now dismissed.